So digital technology was supposed to democratize our politics, but has it done so? The 2016 election, some say is transparent, some say is more and more opaque. We have two experts on transparency and opacity. Don and Alex Tapscott, the author of the new and I no doubt best-selling book, Blockchain Revolution. Don, the 2016 election in America, is that opaque or transparent? Are we celebrating, are we bemoaning what's going on in our politics?
Well, I think there'd be few people who would disagree that there's a real crisis of democracy. And it's evidenced in the current election in the United States. But all around the world, young people aren't voting. More and more agree with the bumper sticker, "Don't vote," it only encourages them. And
encourages who? You mean the politicians?
Yeah, exactly.
Or the pollsters?
And well, they're pretty active too. But basically, I mean, if you look at the US, a lot of people don't know what's going on in the background. And what's going on is that big money is funding these campaigns and it's shaping these campaigns. And here in the digital age, when we were supposed to be moving into a second era of democracy with better citizen engagement, a culture of public deliberation, active citizenship, more transparency, we have this. To the point where people who have the right to vote show up and they're not registered. How can this be?
Perfect segue, Don, to your new book, Blockchain, or you and Alex's new book, Blockchain Revolution. Alex, how does the blockchain revolution solve the problem that Don is talking about?
Well, I don't think that any one technology is a silver bullet for social problems, but I do think that there's a lot about blockchain technology which can change the way citizenry interacts with government. And I think it falls basically into two ways. Blockchain technology is a new, powerful tool for governments to deliver essential services to their citizens. It's a way for citizens to hold governments to account for whether or not they're actually abiding by their commitments. And so in that respect, I think it can improve how citizens receive services, but also increase transparency and accountability. And I think ultimately that could restore trust in our institutions.
Now, are you still in shock hearing a Tapscott say that it's not a technology silver bullet to solve a big problem?
Don, it's hard, as you know, it's hard to shock me. But seriously, Don, are we seeing any early shoots of the blockchain revolution in 2016? I mean, is Bitcoin playing a role? Do you see any evidence in 2016 that this revolution, which I think you're absolutely right, will change everything, is already beginning to change stuff?
Yes, it's starting in every nook and cranny of the economy. Now, the most obvious one is the financial services industry, which is a bizarre, arcane industry that has regulation going back to when money moved around in a horse and buggy. And that today, well, we called it a Rube Goldbergian system. You tap your card in Starbucks and this bit stream goes through a dozen computers, and 3 days later a settlement occurs, and on the way it goes through some 1970s mainframes. Well, blockchains are a distributed ledger, a distributed database, kind of like a global spreadsheet, where you don't need a powerful institution to authenticate who you are, who I am, and to conduct and settle a transaction.
Is Donald Trump sort of a personalization of blockchain? Is there something about him that he claims to be so transparent and tells the truth about his finances and where he's getting his money or not getting his money?
Well, just to be clear, I think that Donald Trump is not transparent. I think he's the most duplicitous person ever to run for office in the history of the United States. And even his assertion that his campaign is self-funded is not accurate. He does accept donations, and in addition, a significant portion of them come from wealthy donors. So to make that comparison is
but Don,
patently
are we
ridiculous.
seeing any blockchain in the 2016 election? Maybe we're seeing it in finance. Are we seeing it in the political process at all?
Not yet, really. I mean...
Nothing?
No, most politicians, if you walk into the Senate and say, who's heard of the blockchain, you'll get 7% of the hands will go up. So we're in the early days. This always happens with a new paradigm. That, you know, paradigm is a mental model. We think we have the Internet of Information. But even with that Internet of Information, Politicians have not used it to create more open government, and they've generally not used it to engage citizens more. Obama did during his first campaign. He created myBarackObama.com, and 35,000 communities self-organized using the internet, and that brought him to power. But in his second election campaign, he dumped all of that in favor of big data. He went from yes, we can to we know you, and he targeted individuals. It got him elected, and in the next round we had the lowest youth voting in 70 years in the United States, maybe ever.
I don't always agree with you, Don, but I absolutely agree. Alex, let's cast our minds forward 8 years to 2020, 2024. Let's say your blockchain revolution is happening. How will that change the presidential election? What will it look like?
Well, first off, I don't think the future is something to be predicted, and anybody's predictions is as good as
well,
good as
you
anyone
guys
else's.
are predicting
But
it. You're saying that blockchain is going to change everything.
well, we're advocating for institutions, for leaders in both the public sector and the private sector to use this technology to change the way they do business, and in the example of the public realm, how they interact with citizens. I would like to see campaign finance reformed. First off, I'd like to see Citizens United repealed and replaced with a system where the source of funds could be tracked with more certainty.
That would be a blockchain-based reform.
Not so much to the individual, because of course individuals should have privacy, but to the type of donor, whether or not it came from a corporation that was overseas, say based in Panama, for example, whether or not it came from someone who earned more than $1 million in the previous year. That would give us a much clearer picture as to the complexion of the donor base that's ultimately funding these campaigns. That would be a nice first step. There are other things I'd like to see too, but if we could achieve that, it could increase transparency.
For example, imagine this. The politicians come to power with a smart contract with the people who elected them.
A smart social contract.
It can't be changed. But don't they already do that? They make promises, they never keep them up.
Right.
Well, they don't, because they're not beholden to the electorate, they're beholden to the people who funded them. Imagine if you don't get paid unless you abide by the conditions of your contract, then the contract on the blockchain automatically pays you.
What kind of, finally, Don, what kind of politician then would come to prominence in this blockchain age? Would it be a Bernie Sanders style populist?
Well, I won't put any names on it, but it'll be someone with some curiosity, an innovator, someone who actually cares about democracy.
Like yourself?
Well, yeah, right. I don't think so. But, you know, take something like negative advertising. Everybody knows it's toxic. It suppresses voting. It undermines democracy, yet everybody does it because they think it works. By the way, in Canada, you know, Justin Trudeau won the election without any negative advertising. Maybe it's somebody like him who could be an example of a leader that can embrace this new technology.